For the eighth year in a row, St. Augustine Mayor Nancy Sikes-Kline has been recognized for her hometown advocacy. She was recently named a 2025 Home Rule Hero by the Florida League of Cities. Mayor, thanks for coming here. Congratulations.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Of course, I'm very happy to be here this morning with
Well,
you.
we're delighted to have you. I wonder if you can sort of explain the challenge of home rule for people who don't understand what it is, what it's supposed to be.
Okay. So basically, the Florida legislature, in its wisdom, every year when they meet during session, they make laws, they make new laws, they improve old laws. And a lot of times they're not totally mindful of what the impact some of those laws have on our unique communities. We like to say, one size does not fit all. Florida is a very diverse state from the south to the north to the panhandle to the central. We have different issues, but when you make laws that are supposed to fit everybody into that box, it doesn't really work very well for us. So so what we do as a group is we advocate at to the legislators individually, normally on bills that we're monitoring that we see pop up.
You say
We
we
focus
are
when
you
we
talking about
say,
the Florida League of
yeah, the
Cities?
Florida League of Cities is who does provide the award, the Home Rule Hero Award, and they have a criteria. But mostly we're a group of electeds, local electeds. A lot of us are mayors, and we do primarily the work of advocating for our communities, for all of our smaller communities. There's over 300 smaller cities that are represented in the Florida League of Cities. So home rule is important to us. That means that we have the leeway that we need to create our own laws to protect our citizens and our homes.
I mean, you say, home rule is important to you, but it's also important to voters. I mean, the concept of home rule was actually put into the Florida Constitution by voters
Yes.
saying very much the same thing. We believe that our communities are unique places. We believe that the people we elect on a local basis can and should be advocating for our own local interests, and that a lot of those decisions shouldn't necessarily be made at a statewide
State.
level.
And that's largely ignored. So, but yes, that's correct.
So when that was placed in the Constitution, and I think it's been, more than 50 years, how has the trend been when it comes to lawmakers in Tallahassee respecting or regarding home rule?
Well, I want to say this first. There are those that came from local governments. They kind of came up through the ranks as city elected at the local level, or they came up through the counties and they get into the Florida legislature and they understand the community's issues. So I don't want to put everybody into one box, but most of the electeds at the state level are coming from industry, or they're coming in as attorneys. They've never served at the local level, so they don't really understand how communities work. Our job is to educate them and let them know that. So I think that I think your question was
Well, when if there has been a greater movement away from the embrace of home rule, like if there is a trend that's discernible, or is this just in the
it
50 years since it was put in
absolutely.
the Constitution? Just
So correct. And so over time, so in my 8 years, I've been active in Tallahassee much longer than 8 years, going way back before I was ever elected, but not as a home rule hero, but as just, going up to Tallahassee representing the interests of the city uh, on special topics like the lighthouse
yeah,
or the Bridge of Lions,
right.
or like those issues. They over time, I've seen less and less regard. Generally, the trend is, and I don't know if that's conscious or not. I can't necessarily point fingers, but what is interesting is with that correspondent rise and sort of a numbness to local, kind of a numbness, I would say, to local issues. We at the Florida League of Cities have become much more active and more people involved in what I'm doing,
Yeah.
which is advocating for home rule. And I will tell you, the Florida League of Cities has become very effective. They have a team of, of advocates and lobbyists in Tallahassee 24/7 during session that we can call on and work with. And they monitor, they keep us up to date. They've really become a powerhouse. And we begin meeting. I think our first meeting is in September. I'm on a policy committee, a legislative policy committee. That's this particular one has to do with intergovernmental relations, mobility, and emergency management. And we begin meeting in September. We meet 3 times. We develop our policies. And their job in Tallahassee, the staff of the Florida League of Cities, is to assist us and to let us know what's going on, on the ground, because we can't all be there. So, but yes, there has been a big trend. And I think it's because a lot of it is that I always say they do it because they can. The legislators have a political power. They have one party really ingrained and ruling, and they have been for a long time. So they do things because they can.
There are so many issues that this has impacted, and some people have heard about them, whether it's reducing the use of plastic bags in communities, or straws, even sunscreen bans, balloons. Some marine communities have worked to try to ban the use of those. But there have also been heat exposure regulations, which the state has said, local governments can't set limits on how people are working or when they're, required to have water breaks. Public school funding, minimum wage regulations, housing needs. A big one for St. Augustine is short-term rentals. Can you talk a little bit about kind of why St. Augustine has a unique need when it comes to things like Airbnbs or VRBOs, and how that has been stymied in some ways by what the legislature has required?
Well, yes. We're very fortunate in St. Augustine because we did, back a number of years ago, have an issue come up. And I think it was about a wedding venue. It was a home in a neighborhood. It was down on Water Street. And there was a gentleman who was renting it out for big weddings. And so it was a problem with the neighborhood. But in response to the outcry, we crafted some protections on large parties and things like that. And that law we use now to protect certain areas from longer term rentals or shorter term rentals in our residential neighborhoods. I'll just leave it at that. So we had the insight years ago. We didn't know that this phenomenon was coming of short-term rentals, and that we were going to have this web application that would be able to allow people to rent units all over the world for a night or two. So we were very fortunate. But yes, our problem in the city is not necessarily unique. It's not a problem that all cities in the state have. It's usually cities that are near maybe Disney, where you get a lot of vacationers. So St. Augustine is a big tourist town, so it is a big problem. I think that I was told this morning that it was about 900 units now in the city are short-term rental units.
And so one instance
that's a lot.
Yeah, that the city might want to address in regulating short-term rentals might be parking, for instance. So if you have a house that's kind of a party house in a block, and you've got people coming with 5-6 cars to
It's solid waste is one of them. Sure. Noise, of course. Too many people in the units. We've tried to regulate that in a different section of our code. Number of vehicles. There's registration for safety. That's a big, big, big one. Like hotels are always saying that's not fair how you let short-term rentals operate without the same standards that you apply to us.
Right.
And we're in charge. We spend lots of money keeping our visitors safe. I mean, our customers safe, and with exit signs and things like that. So the state has allowed us to do some things, but they're very, very tight. And it seems like almost every single year someone's got a bill that's trying to strip us of what we've got grandfathered in.
Yeah.
And then add some new onerous thing that happens to be a problem in their own community.
Well, you say that, lawmakers do it because they can, but I mean, I guess I would push back a little bit on that. I would suggest that, I mean, somebody's benefiting from the
Oh,
laws as
oh,
they're realized, if it's not the local community. So
yes.
who is benefiting when local communities are being told you can't regulate the use of plastic bags, you can't regulate sunscreens, you can
So I will tell you this. What I know is when I go to the hearings, we didn't have a short-term rental bill last year to fight. Um, so it wasn't last year; it was the year before, and the year before, and the year before. It's Expedia, for an example, Booking.com. They're the ones that come with their lobbying team and say, pass this law. We need this law. We support this law. It's individual cities that say no. So I would venture to guess it would be the big platforms like VRBO and Airbnb,
Mhm.
Expedia, Booking, and now there's a bunch of them. There's a whole lot of them.
I
So,
mean, does
but
that apply to
Expedia is always there. I will tell you that.
one issue that has come up, particularly concerning, I think, for some local governments? I know we've talked about it on this program as it relates to the city of Jacksonville, is the question of what happens to taxes. Um, you know, especially property taxes, which has, it's
Mm.
been a subject where where lawmakers are talking about eliminating them, which would be a huge hit for local governments.
Well, in taxes pertaining to short-term rentals or just
No,
property?
like property in general,
I think
or
most of the people that I talk to are very aware that if you don't collect, that local governments run on those ad valorem taxes largely. Now, in the city of St. Augustine, we've diversified a little bit. We're not as dependent on ad valorem as a lot of communities are. For example, St. Johns County is fairly dependent on ad valorem taxes,
mm,
but we have fees. We've done other things for different reasons. But yeah, that's that. I think most people at the local level say, well, then where is the money going to come from to fund local government? We need local government to do the enforcement of things like pick up trash, enforce the noises ordinances, come and enforce the parking and all those other things that need to be done, the services that we deliver that are critical and our basic
sure,
services
public
to
safety, schools,
every kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah. At local level, we don't really do the schools. That's kind of a county function. That's a county
yeah. I
function.
think that's more of an
Um,
impact here in
but
Jacksonville.
yeah, they would be impacted. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. I mean, to me, it's like most people really don't think it's almost like, why are you even saying that?
yeah,
Because the money's got to come from somewhere. You better show us where it's going to come from. And the tourists aren't going to be able to pick it up.
yeah.
Can't put it on the tourists.
Just briefly, St. Augustine does have special challenges that I think a lot of communities don't have, and some of the resilience issues are big, but historic preservation is also a big one. And you had some success this year
We
lobbying.
did. We
Yeah.
did. We for the second year in a row, we had our um, unlawful demolition bill. We called it. We were very fortunate. We have really good relationships with our local delegation. Senator Tom Leake sponsored our bill.
Mhm.
Representative Sam Greco. They're both new to us. So we have an all new delegation. He sponsored it, and I think Representative Kim Kendall, Representatives Judson Sapp. So really, everybody really helped us push that bill through. But essentially, what that will do is it will raise the stakes on someone demolishing a historic structure without a permit, without a demolition permit.
Well,
Before
Mayor,
it was 5,000, now it
yeah.
can be much, much more. So we're really happy about that. We think it'll be a great deterrent
Well,
to
Mayor,
unlawful
we'll
demolition.
have to leave it there, but
Okay.
congrats again on being a 2025 Home Rule Hero.
Thank
I appreciate it. Thanks for
you.
talking to us today.
I appreciate